Auburn adds Georgia Tech star receiver Eric Singleton. Oh my goodness, he's so good.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen or your second listen every single day. It's a happy hour edition of the show. Montgomery radio legend Darrell Dapprich joins me. And Darrell, there's nothing better than getting ready for the day. Maybe you're sipping on some coffee, and then you get notifications from all over the place that Eric Singleton, the top receiver in the transfer portal, the former Georgia Tech wide receiver, is now officially an Auburn wide receiver. We've been talking about this guy kind of sitting on pins and needles, waiting for the news to become official. Really since last Thursday. It happens early in the morning. Christmas came early for several Auburn fans this week.
You know, it's really kind of a conflicting thing. It was weird when the news dropped, but it was really kind of cool on an early Monday morning. I always check my phone first thing when I get up in the morning. I check all socials and all that, and I got up early. To start off a Monday morning, which is typically a blah day, but not during this week because, you know, Christmas is coming and all that.
Sure.
To start the work week off and a Monday morning, which is usually a drag your rear end into work kind of day, with that news, and like I said, I saw it at 6 a.m., man, it was just like, it was more caffeine injected me than a cup of coffee. I was ready to go. And I think you make a good point. I expected it Friday, then I expected it Saturday. We got some word that it may happen yesterday. When I went to bed last night and it hadn't happened, I really thought this was going to go closer up to the December 28th day that the portal closed. And so it was a pleasant surprise to see that first thing this morning.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting because there was so much talk on like rumor of how he signed, but Auburn's holding the papers or whatever and waiting to make the announcement, and they're being strategic with it. And that made sense to a certain point. Like we originally heard it Thursday. Sounded like it was the original plan. And then Sunday was the next plan. It's like, okay, well, like what's going on here? And so who knows when he officially signed, but it became public Monday morning, and that's all that really matters. 56 receptions last year, 754 yards, 3 touchdowns, average catch of 13.5 yards down the field. When you look at what he did in 2023, 2 seasons ago, 48 catches for 714 yards. 6 touchdowns. This is a guy who's been really solid for Georgia Tech for the last 2 seasons, been a big, huge focal point of the offense for Georgia Tech. Entered the portal, was one of the coveted players in the entire transfer portal, not just receivers instantly. It was a very competitive battle. In fact, we thought, okay, Auburn was one of the first visits. I think it was his first visit. We were like, we can't let him leave. We can't let him get to Oxford. Then he did, and you had that Ole Miss guy that like crystal balls everybody in the world to Ole Miss, and he's hardly ever right. But he ended up being an Auburn Tiger. Darrell, like this is a big win. This is a big win. There's no matter how you slice this is a huge win for the Tigers.
Well, I always say the best sources for crystal balling people to Auburn is Tom Loy, Steve Wiltfong, and the Ole Miss guy. Because if he crystal balls someone to Ole Miss, he's coming to Auburn. Book it. And I think the other thing that I would keep in mind on this is I was watching the Georgia Tech game in a restaurant one night, and I could not stop saying, man, I would love to see that kid in orange and blue. He just popped. Singleton. Haynes King had a really good game that game too, but sure. Singleton just looked different on the field, and I was really hoping that he would get in the portal. You wish, or you kind of daydream and go, man, that'd be a kid, if he went in the portal, I'd love for Auburn to get. And then it comes to fruition. And I think it speaks volumes that he went to Ole Miss and still, obviously signed with Auburn, that Auburn had something that he wanted to sell. And again, this continues to me the just, I don't know, inexplicable way that Auburn can continue to get this high-level talent coming off 2 losing seasons. And I don't want to hear about NIL, and I don't want to hear about money, buying players. Everybody has money. And if you don't think that there's people in the conference that have more money than Auburn, then people are naive. They do. Somehow, some way, Auburn's selling this vision. And I like him. I like him for a veteran presence to replace KLS on the roster, not necessarily his position or where he plays, but just a body to replace a really good receiver.
Yeah. And I don't know. I talked about this with Lindsay on this morning show. Like, I don't know if Singleton necessarily like replaces KLS as far as role. He does replace him as far as impact and production, 100%. But they are not the same receiver. Or at least they haven't been up to this point. So I am curious to see what exactly.
Can I say one other point that I wanted to mention? I forgot. Tom Luganbill was talking about him on the next round, and he said he runs a 10-3 100-yard dash, that he's a burner.
Yeah.
Well, I know KLS seemed really fast because he got open and he got separation, but I suspect Singleton's a little bit faster, straight line speed. How sweet is that? My goodness.
Yeah, you take that. No question about it. You got to think, if you're Eric, like you got to be excited about the upside that Jackson Arnold brings in. And then obviously playing opposite of Cam Coleman, that's going to, allow you to have more one-on-one matchups. So it makes sense why he would want to come in. It does like bear the question of, I mean, how many productive wide receivers can Auburn have at this point? I mean, we said it going into last year. We talked about how last year's receiver room for Auburn was one of the best it's ever had. And I stand by that. They're just young. And I think the class or the room this year is going to be even better because I think Singleton's that good.
I like Horatio Fields too. And it depends on if you put if Auburn's offense goes into a four wide receiver set, think about the bodies they could throw out there. And then even you can go to 5 wide. If you go to a 5 wide empty set, no tight ends. I mean, it's limitless.
So right now, a 4 wide receiver set, whichever running back you want to pick, standing next to Jackson. And then you've got Cam Coleman, and I guess Singleton's out wide opposite Coleman. And then you've got Malcolm Simmons. Or do you put Fields out wide and you put Singleton at slot? Like
that's what I would do. I'd put
that's a lot to throw at somebody.
I'd put Fields and Coleman out wide, Simmons and Singleton inside on both sides as far as slot if you're going 4 receiver set, and then let someone try to cover that.
It's a lot. That's a lot. Oh, yeah, and also defend Jackson Arnold's legs, as well as, Damari or Jeremiah or Darrell, whoever's at running back. It's a lot. It's a good, the skill positions are certainly there. You can't blame the roster anymore. Darrell. This is it. You've got the roster that you wanted. Auburn has ponied up. They have said, okay, we're done with this. Like, you can't make the roster an excuse anymore. And I think that's very, very important.
It's with that comes an inherent amount of pressure, but that's okay. I truly believe.
Yeah, you're the head coach at Auburn.
You're the head coach at Auburn.
Pressure.
Exactly. And I know that it's already some inherent pressure because you're going on year 3 with 2 losing seasons. But when you have earned this roster, because Hugh Freeze is instrumental in putting some of this together, as well as Kenyatta Watson and Will Redmond. When you earn this roster, you've got all the tools now. You've got all the toys. There's no excuse. I mean, there is no grace period. There's no excuse, because here's the other thing. The narrative ends after this year. The grace period ends with, I think, trying to sell kids on a vision to get this type of talent in here. We've talked about how remarkable it is that Auburn's done that for 2 years.
Agreed.
I don't think you get a third. I think this is it. You're not going to be able to continue to do this and pull this off. Yeah.
All right, so Auburn lands Eric Singleton, who's the guy that we've talked about a ton over the last week or so. They did miss on a guy. And it makes me very sad. It makes me very, very sad, but I get it. We'll jump into that in just a moment, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Rocket Money. Darrell, I mean, how many subscriptions do you have that you're just like, man, I haven't used this in forever? I don't know, and that's the problem. Yeah, it's tough to track it all down. Yeah. You keep saying like, oh, I need to look at that, but it's a little overwhelming. Well, I'm telling you to head over to rocketmoney.com/lockedon, and they'll take care of it for you. They'll list out all of your subscriptions and say, hey, here's how you can save money. You can even cancel the subscriptions from the app. My family's used Rocket Money. We had 2 Amazon Prime accounts. Take that for what it's worth. Now we only have one as soon as we it paid for itself with that one fine. So you talk about return on investment and all of that. Rocket Money has you covered. So Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/lockedon today. That's rocketmoney.com/lockedon. rocketmoney.com/lockedon. Today's show also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Darrell, can you imagine wagering anywhere other than with our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook?
Cannot.
No, I can't either. This doesn't get old saying, but Auburn, according to FanDuel, is the odds-on favorite to win the national championship in basketball, which is insane. FanDuel has their odds of making the Final Four better than winning the SEC, which is insane. If you believe in this Auburn basketball team, head over to FanDuel right now. And hey, they've upped the ante a little bit. Right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So just visit FanDuel.com to join today. FanDuel.com. Thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn your first or second listen every single day. Darrell Dapprich, TJ Searcy, the former Florida Edge. I gushed about him over and over and over again. Auburn had him on campus. Sounds like it went so well. He's not going to Auburn. Going to what? A&M?
Texas A&M. Did A&M get the visit after Auburn?
I guess so.
So that's kind of a flip-flop of what happened last year. Auburn got Singleton.
Here's what I've heard, and it makes a ton of sense. I think if they would have lost to Morris and have not been able to get a Morris Williams back, they probably would have pushed harder for TJ Searcy.
Well,
do you need an edge? No. Would it have been super awesome to have one? Like, yeah, we've talked about this before. I don't think you can have too many edge guys. I don't think you have too many corners. I think last year kind of proved that too. So there's only, you only have access to so many resources. But you got to think if they would have lost to Morris, they would have probably pushed a little bit more for Searcy. But Amaris gives you, that backup in spot to be behind Keldrick. He's also good enough if one of those younger guys who haven't played a ton at the edge position, like a Jamonta or a Joe Phillips, if one of those guys don't take the step forward that you want, you could probably put Amaris at edge or Buck as well. So I get it. Maybe I'm selfish. I just wanted more. Darrell.
Well, if you told me you had an opportunity or a choice to keep Amaris Williams or lose Amaris Williams and get Searcy, I like keeping Amaris Williams.
I agree.
I just do. So
I agree.
Sometimes you have to understand that there's only so many slots, and this was probably it. I agree. I think the writing's on the wall that it had 6 days ago. Amaris not said he was coming back. This probably would have been a kid that went to Auburn. As it is now, I'm more than happy and satisfied to keep. I would have liked to have been selfish and greedy and just keep stacking. But maybe one of the reasons why Amaris stayed is because he knew there was going to be a lot more playing time opportunity and not a lot of people coming over top of him. So there you go.
Which, once again, props to the staff having the awareness of, having backup plans in place. If TJ was truly a backup plan, I don't know. This also could have been a situation where Texas A&M really liked them, and they blank checked them at that point. It's like, what do you?
They oil moneyed him. They oil moneyed him.
Yeah, and that goes back to like, whenever we do I'll grab a clip of the show talking about, man, what is Auburn pitching right now? And I'll put it on socials. Everybody's like, from other fan bases, oh, it's just money. It's just money. It's like, no, like there are other schools with as much or more money that have won more recently than Auburn has. Like it's so much deeper. It's so much deeper than that. And you sound ignorant when you say it's just money.
It's exactly right. The point I made earlier is that all things are a lot more equal on that. Everybody has money. Everybody has money to spend. And I would say that there are probably 4 or 5 schools at least in the SEC that have more money than Auburn. So there's other things, but this is it. Whatever you're selling, whatever that vision is, this is it. You got to have some proof of concept, in my opinion. And again, I would have liked to get as many bodies as you can and get greedy, but it is what it is. And who knows what Texas A&M might have been a lot more desperate for an edge than Auburn was.
Yep. All right, Darrell, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
Follow me on X, DAP, 6410, Instagram, Darrell Dap. And then, of course, I'm with you in my normal weekly segments and live after basketball games.
That's right. Please like the video. Please subscribe. Have a very Merry Christmas. Still expect shows every single day. We got you covered, folks. We got you covered. This has been Locked On Auburn.